Tiny homes aren't just cute, they can actually make you some serious money. So there's some misconceptions out there when it comes to tiny houses. A lot of people think they're just cute little homes, in which they are, and a lot of people buy the tiny home to live in. But then there's a whole other category of tiny homes, and that's for investment purposes. Now that can go a bunch of different ways. That can go be for a short-term rental, mid-term rental, long-term rental. And today I'm mostly going to focus on long-term rental, the aspect of a tiny house, because the returns that you can get from investing in tiny homes are much greater than, let's say, if you just invested in the stock market or whatnot. But most likely, many of you are going to be interested in the real estate aspect of investing with tiny homes. So if you were to invest in a tiny home, and this example will show you what it looks like if you were to do a yearly lease for your tenants. Most likely, if you're buying a tiny house rental for investment purposes, you're not going to go with a very high-end tiny house. Let's be honest. To buy a $150,000 tiny house, you would still make money, but you're not going to realize your money as quickly. So most tiny home investors invest in the more basic, affordable ones, using materials that are built to last a long time, which is what I do myself. So let's just say that you buy a lower end tiny house, let's say $65,000. Now, most likely, if you're going to do multiple tiny homes, you need to create an LLC, and you just can call that a tiny house community, which is what I've done for myself. You could start out with doing just one, but ideally you want to get into multiple of these. So again, let's go back to the fact that your purchase price is about $65,000. Now, for me, I'm charging about $1,200 rent per month. Now, there is some expenses associated with that, which we'll get into here in just a second. So we're gonna say about $1,200 per month. Now, like I said before, there are some expenses, and this is up to you if you want to include electric, which I do. And then I also have to have some property management. Someone has to take care of that, and in between, you're gonna have a turnover. Let's say someone moves out after 2 years, someone's gotta come through and freshen that up. So there's some expenses. On average, an industry-wide standard is about 30%. So your expense ratio is about 30%. So it's about 30% of your gross. Now, if you were to say 1,200 times 0.7, which is what you have left over, 70%, that would be $840 per month. Now, if you multiply that times 12, you're bringing in about $10,000 a year per tiny house. Now, also, these numbers are going to change based on the size of the tiny house. Also, if you are in an area that demands a really high monthly rental or low, but $1,200 is actually a really good number. Say that your net is about $10,080 per year, and if you're familiar with investing, there's what's called a cap rate, a capitalization rate. Most places are going to be hovering around at 8%, maybe 10%. Divided by 0.08, which is your cap rate. That means for that property that this tiny home is sitting on, you are adding $126,000 to the value of that property. So if you take $126,000 and deduct that from $65,000, you're left with $61,000. And again, a lot of these numbers are going to change based on what you're up to, what's your ideal, but this is a really good average. So by buying a tiny house, having it delivered to your property, setting it up, and finding a long-term tenant, you're adding $61,000 to the value of that property. Now again, this could change. You could even find a cheaper tiny house than this. You can find a more expensive, but this is a really good number. Basically, the whole exercise here is to just show you what kind of money you can make by purchasing tiny houses as rentals. This is just an example of having one tiny house. Of course, you could scale, so multiply these numbers, and you can see really quickly how this could work out in your favor. And after you have one of these tiny houses for multiple years, you could sell it, go buy yourself another one. So as you can see, based on these numbers, tiny houses aren't just cute, they're excellent investments.